Deebo Samuel is officially a Washington Commander. And that is an end of an era for the 49ers. What an era it was. I have to start with that. I think there's not enough appreciation from people. Folks, you got to step back. You have to look at this with some context. Deebo Samuel joined the 49ers in 2019 when this team was struggling. They were literally coaching the Senior Bowl, the staff was, because they were so bad. They went 4-12, and Deebo Samuel was part of the crew that spearheaded the change in mentality in San Francisco. The 49ers zagged while the league zigged. Deebo Samuel set NFL records when it came to his ability to deliver after contact as a wide receiver. And the 49ers turned into bullies. He was out there with Trent Williams leading the way out with the boombox. Now we wonder, is the boombox a thing of the past for the 49ers? I mean, today marked a big shift for the 49ers, even if we expected it. But it is time to look back at the receiving yards, the thousands of receiving yards, the thousands of rushing yards that Deebo Samuel put up, the 42 career touchdowns that he put up, the big moments like that 3-touchdown game against Philadelphia in 2023 where the 49ers exacted their vengeance. How about the versatility that Deebo put on display in 2021 when he was an all-pro and the 49ers ran out of running backs and he had a lineup in the backfield and he delivered for San Francisco at a newly coined position called the wide back position. I mean, it was a fun 6 years. And things went south in 2024 for Deebo and for the rest of the 49ers. And time is up. Change happened. We'll get into why the change happened, but there's just so much incorrect information out there about the monetary impact of this. And the 49ers, yes, they actually saved money with this move. In a way, it's a glorified salary dump because they get a 5th-round pick in return from Washington for Deebo Samuel. But there are people who are salary cap illiterate who are trying to pass off information that just isn't true. So here is how the 49ers saved money with Deebo Samuel. Traded to the Washington Commanders. These are the cap hits before and after. Just to keep things simple, I decided to create a graphic for you. 2025, the cap hit before the trade was $15.9 million. The cap hit for Deebo Samuel this year has increased. It's now $31.5 million because dead money has accelerated to hit the books in 2025. However, next season, the cap hit before this trade was $33.1 million. That cap hit after the trade is $0. The 49ers clear all the money that they still must absorb on their salary cap for Deebo Samuel into 2025. They no longer have to face any of the cap charges in 2026. So when you add up the totals, they previously owed Deebo Samuel $49 million. Now they cut out $17.5 million. That money is sent to the books of the Washington Commanders, who will very likely give Deebo Samuel a new contract. So the 49ers save $17.5 million, even though there is less salary cap space now this year. But the 49ers were obviously flexible enough to do that, and a lot of people doubted their ability to do that. But we were sitting here through multiple shows showing you my own work for the 49ers salary cap. And through multiple shows, we established that San Francisco has enough short-term room to absorb a larger cap hit now so that they can recoup some draft capital for Deebo Samuel. Let's go down to Deebo right here. Oh, this is the 2024 books. Here are the 2025 books. Look at this. $61.57 million on my 53-man projection. All right, Deebo Samuel's cap hit is now going to be 31.55. It's going to move to dead money. So watch this blue number up here change. 49ers still have over 45 million projected even after making this move. They can also trade Brandon Ayuk. Not saying they will, but they can also trade Brandon Ayuk, and that would cost about $7.6 million in extra cap space, and they would still have about $38 million in salary cap space to work with. This is how the 49ers have operated financially to set themselves up for maximum short-term flexibility. It is extremely important to understand dead money and long-term finances in the NFL. And that's why San Francisco deemed this trade request for Deebo Samuel to be one that they could oblige because long-term finances actually benefited from it. Deebo came in at the exit interview after the disappointing 2024 season and requested a trade. 49ers thought about it and said, well, it's actually not a bad idea because Deebo wasn't as good in 2024. We all know this. I think that the season started much better than it ended for Deebo Samuel. Training camp was excellent. Week 1 was excellent. Week 2, he had over 100 receiving yards against the Minnesota Vikings, but he hurt his oblique in week 2. And he was never the same player that season after that. Maybe with a spark against Miami late, but that was after the very disappointing game against the Rams. He even wanted the football more, got the football more. They force-fed him against the Rams, and, well, it didn't end up well. He dropped the football on what should have been the game-winning touchdown pass from Brock Purdy. We saw the writing on the wall when the 49ers drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round of the 2024 NFL draft. And San Francisco was obviously moving to a man-beating wide receiver, a separator in Ricky Pearsall, who's coming at a much cheaper price, cost-controlled rookie wage scale price with the 31st overall pick. They had yet to pay Brandon Ayuk at that point. So the thinking was when they drafted Pearsall in late April that Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk might battle it out in 2025 to see which of them remains on the roster. Obviously, or in 2024. Now we're in 2025. Obviously, a lot's happened since then. Brandon Ayuk made his contract negotiation with the 49ers particularly unpleasant. That ticked a lot of people off inside the 49ers building. And then he showed up and started playing following the extension at a low level compared to where he was in 2023. He clearly wasn't ready to deliver on that contract extension. And then he tore his ACL in week 7 of the season. So that all got off on a very bad foot, the new deal for Brandon Ayuk. Meanwhile, at the start of the season was better for Deebo Samuel, who was playing for a new contract because he, at the time, only had 2 seasons left on his deal. But then came the injury, then came the pneumonia, then came the tweet, then came the drop against the Rams, then came the trade request to end the season. But at the time of the trade request, the 49ers already saw the body of work in 2024. They saw that Deebo Samuel's yards per carry had dropped from 6.1 to 3.2. They saw that his reception success rate, which measures the efficiency of the catches that he actually is making, dropped from 56% to 40%. I mean, these were massive drops in efficiency. Yes, I think his burst was still there. I made the point during the season that his burst was still there. They put him back on kick returns, and he had a couple big kick returns where he showed plenty of speed. But the integration within the offense just was nowhere near as efficient for Deebo Samuel. We can even go to my State of the 49ers receiver piece to talk about and show some of the performance splits at that wide receiver position. And they clearly indicate that Deebo Samuel and his fit with the 49ers offense was not the same as it was in the past. This is measured by yards per route run. Blue is above average. Red is below average. Now, I don't like to just measure by raw yards or raw catches because it's better to know how many routes the receiver ran to see how often he was targeted and how efficient he was. And Deebo Samuel dropped 8.9% of his passes on the season, and the yards per route run dropped to 1.6, which is in the red, as you can see here, which is below average for Deebo Samuel. So he wasn't an efficient producer on the 49ers offense anymore. And one could argue that maybe that would turn around next season if the 49ers get Brandon Ayuk back into the lineup, if Christian McCaffrey is creating space. But go back to the Bill Walsh philosophy. It was ruthless, right? Bill Walsh would look at a player like Dwight Clark, look at a player like Freddie Solomon, and he would say, you know, I'm going to part ways with you a year too early rather than a year too late. Deebo Samuel's 29. He's going to be 30 next January, so he'll turn 30 at the end of next season. He's got an extremely punishing style that's made him a lot of money in the NFL. After the 2021 All-Pro season, Deebo Samuel signed a deal with his agent, Tory Dandy, that was worth over $23 million annually. It was a big contract for Deebo Samuel. He's going to sign another new contract now with the Washington Commanders. So that punishing style, though, it might not age gracefully. We might have seen the first signs of it, although I'm sure that there were several caveats. But the 49ers said, we're not sure how that style is going to age. And they also said, even if it does age decently well, Brock Purdy is the type of quarterback that is not just throwing quick screens all the time, where Deebo just catches the ball and runs with it. Brock Purdy is a little bit more reliant on separation, on good route running down the field. And Deebo Samuel, those aren't his strong suits, right? He's more of a bulldozer than he's a separator. He is a unique and fantastically talented football player, but he was the perfect match for the 49ers at an earlier time. And it's not a perfect match anymore. So we heard John Lynch talk about this is the right time for the divorce to happen, and the divorce did indeed happen. The 49ers have traded Deebo Samuel, and they were able to recoup that 5th-round draft pick. They now have 11 picks in the 2025 draft. Lynch talked a lot, and I wrote this. This is up on the San Francisco Standard, by the way. You can go ahead and check out the link to this. It's up here. I just highlighted the link. It is in the description on YouTube. If you're watching on X, go over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Your support there would mean a lot. But then go into the description or go to my X page and look for this article where we really delve into everything regarding Deebo Samuel. I'm even going to get this chart into the article. I have to send it over so they could put it in. But this I wanted to hit on the football aspect and the salary cap aspect, because there's so much confusion about the dead money. Bottom line, 49ers saved $17.5 million. They had enough money to absorb the bigger dead cap hit this year. Dead money is money they're going to have to pay regardless. So the 49ers just chose to take it sooner, so that way they can get the 5th-round draft pick for Deebo Samuel. But part of what was really interesting, and I try to convey that in the piece, is the quote from John Lynch the other day. We've had high cash spend, and at some point you have to recalibrate a bit. You can't just keep pressing the pedal. But I think there's some good that can come out of it. I think we need to get younger. We were the oldest team in football trying to make a run at it last year. I think it's good to constantly try to get younger. And our draft class last year was a great move towards that. We'll have 4 picks in the top 100. We're excited about adding more youth to the great core of players we already have. Well, if you look at what Lynch said, we already knew at the time that the 49ers were interested in trading Deebo Samuel. I think you could also apply some of this to Brandon Ayuk, although he is younger. Ayuk, I think they would have to really be blown away by the trade return to move on from him. There's a whole video I made about that a little bit earlier, but it is something that the 49ers are open to. But this, clearly is an age-related move. 29 years old, oldest team in the league, 49ers looking for more draft capital. The draft is where they're going to make their hay if they want to rebuild this team in a successful fashion. Look at what the Buffalo Bills did. They let go of 2 receivers, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, after the 2023 season. They were a missed call away from making it back to the Super Bowl, or making it to the Super Bowl for the first time in this Josh Allen era. The Los Angeles Rams have completely scrapped the highly paid portions of their roster. They're going to continue doing that over the course of this offseason. Cooper Kupp is going to be a goner, but over the course of the past few seasons, the Rams have managed to curtail their salary cap spending. They had the lowest defensive spend in the league, and they were within a couple plays of making it to the NFC Championship game. Or the most prominent example, the Philadelphia Eagles. And this one intersects directly with the 49ers, because the Eagles let high-priced players go, like Javon Hargrave, even if they were producing, but they saw them maybe approaching a downswing. They let them go. The 49ers obviously signed Hargrave. The 49ers were trying to cram a title run in there with the core that they had that included Deebo Samuel. While they spent the money, the 49ers had the cash spend. The Eagles were building efficiency on the defensive side of the ball. You can't, you can understand why the 49ers made the moves that they made, because they were in a unique position. They had a lot of superstars. They were so close to winning a title. They wanted to try to, just kick the door down and win one. Last year, it made a ton of sense in the offseason. So they doubled down on Trent Williams with a contract. I don't want to say extension, but they extended the amount of money. So it was a pay raise for Trent Williams. They extended Christian McCaffrey. They obviously extended Brandon Ayuk. Jed York didn't get the ROI that he wanted to. Jed York, finance guy, didn't get the ROI that he needed to in year one. Now, sometimes you need better luck. The 49ers didn't have any of that injury luck. They were probably worn down after 3 straight 20-game runs. But results are results, and they didn't get the results. And they have now moved out of let's cram this in. Let's try to keep everybody together. Long-term financial efficiency be damned. They've moved to, okay, we need to rearrange the deck chairs. We need to trim some fat. We need to bring some efficiency to the money spending operation. And we can still compete. The Bills still competed after they did it. The Rams have still competed after they did it. The Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl after they've rearranged the deck chairs. So you can still compete, but you've got to modernize. And that's what the 49ers are doing with this Deebo Samuel move. Every single move that the 49ers make this offseason will be constructed around the reality that Brock Purdy is the financial centerpiece of this football team. There are no guarantees anywhere. Do you remember John Lynch saying no guarantees? The only guarantee is that Brock Purdy is at the middle of this. There's not even a guarantee that they re-sign him this offseason because he's got to sign on the dotted line. But I think eventually the 49ers will find a way to make that deal done because it is obviously what they are prioritizing. Moving on from Deebo Samuel shows that the 49ers are prioritizing the quarterback position, maybe in a roundabout way, but they want to outfit the offense with receivers who best fit Brock Purdy's game. They want to open up as much long-term money as they possibly can to pay Brock Purdy his contract. Think about the money that the 49ers have cut off the books over the course of the past 2 off seasons, because this trend stretches back to 2024. By the way, this is the Deebo before and after. The cap hit raises this year with this move, but it drops by $33 million next year. The net difference here is that the Deebo Samuel cap impact drops by $17.5 million. So you save $17.5 million through this maneuver. Last year, the 49ers saved about $17 million by moving on from Eric Armstead. They've now decided to move on from Javon Hargrave with a post-June 1st designation. That saves about $40 million because he still had 2 years left on his contract. So 17 plus 17 is 34, plus 40 is 34 plus, oh my God, $74 million plus some of the money that they've saved through Kyle Juszczyk's pay cut that he accepted last offseason. I think that probably saved them $5 or $6 million. The 49ers have saved $80 million through some of these cutting operations, and they may part ways with Kyle Juszczyk and Brandon Ayuk. If they parted ways with him through a trade, if somebody gives them a big return, that's $110 million off the books over the next 4 years. If Purdy's going to make between 50 and 65 million a year, I don't know. That's the range right now, right? If Purdy's going to make X amount of money, you want to keep things tight and efficient financially within the framework around him. And the money added up with the departures of Deebo Samuel via trade, Javon Hargrave via post-June 1st cut, Eric Armstead via cut last season, and Kyle Juszczyk's restructure pay cut last season. That adds up to like a season and a half of your quarterback, of Brock Purdy. That's how some of the best teams in football are operating now. The Buffalo Bills have Josh Allen on a big contract. The Philadelphia Eagles have Jalen Hurts on a big contract. Yes, you pay quite a bit of players around the quarterback, but you have to find ways to make that pay as efficient as possible. And this is one that made particular sense for the 49ers, especially since Deebo Samuel walked into the office and requested a trade at the end of the regular season. Mike points out that Leonard Floyd was a player whom the Bills did not bring back after the 2023 season, and then he went to the 49ers. Leonard Floyd might be a player whom the 49ers don't bring back after the 2024 season moving into 2025. There's still a lot more cap trimming efficiency that the 49ers can make moving forward. But they're going to do it based on fit with the team. You can sign a player to a huge deal as long as it is performance efficient. So Brock Purdy, even if he's making a huge amount of money, it's likely to be performance efficient because the guy's 25 years old and he's been the most efficient quarterback in football over the past 3 years. So you're very okay with giving him big money. Deebo Samuel at his worst season, and there's a belief that he's not going to get back to who he was in 2021. So you feel that your best shot at performance efficiency for the 49ers was not to extend him, but rather to recoup some draft capital and save the $17.5 million. You can read all about it up on the San Francisco Standard. There's a lot of reminiscing that I felt needed to be done. We're going to go through to some of it here toward the end. This was my favorite part toward the end. Why don't we just take a look at the end of the article? Because I think that it's really, really important to deliver the full context. Samuel amassed 4,972 receiving yards, 1,143 rushing yards, 42 touchdowns. It's a lot. It was a glorious era, 6 years. Racked up 1,770 yards from scrimmage in 2021, 14 touchdowns that season. That led to all-pro honors and a new contract with the 49ers. But even after he signed that new contract, and this is where some people forget, Samuel kept on delivering big games. Remember the 3-touchdown explosion when the 49ers blew out the Philadelphia Eagles? 2 months after that, the 49ers trailed the Lions by 17 at halftime of that season's NFC Championship game. And John Lynch told a story about Deebo Samuel that was relayed by Jed York on Kay Adams' show before the Super Bowl that I thought was really emblematic of what Deebo Samuel was able to contribute to the 49ers over his time with the team. A crowning moment came about 2 months after the Philadelphia game. John Lynch went into the locker room when the 49ers were down 17 points, and he said that Deebo was just sitting there, and he was shaking in the locker room. And he turned to John Lynch, and he said, "Just tell Kyle to get me the damn ball." I think all 49ers fans will remember how they felt at halftime of that NFC Championship game. I mean, things were grim. They're beyond grim. I mean, the defense was getting shredded. Effort issues on the defensive side. The offense obviously wasn't keeping up with the Lions. And Deebo Samuel sitting there in his locker. You walk into the 49ers locker room. You walk through the little tunnel that has the mural of the greats, Montana Rice, Ronnie Lott, Steve Young, Roger Craig. And it says, "It won't be easy, but it will be worth it." And then you hit the corner of the locker room, and the second stall down is Deebo Samuel's, or was Deebo Samuel's stall. So I could just picture John Lynch walking in there through that tunnel by the wall. It features Joe Montana and Steve Young, Ronnie Lott, Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, all those guys. I could just imagine Lynch walking there, and the first guy that he sees would have been Deebo Samuel sitting in that corner. And he said that Deebo Samuel was just sitting there shaking. And he said, "Just tell Kyle to get me the damn ball." He was so pissed off that the 49ers were down by 17. And Jed ended up saying, I mean, that's who Deebo is. He's just ready to take over a game at any point. I'm very, very glad that he is on our football club. How quickly things change in the NFL, right? That was what Jed York was saying about a calendar year ago before the Super Bowl. Now the 49ers and Deebo Samuel decided that it was time to part ways. Everything seemed to go downhill after that NFC Championship game. But after that, like immediately after that specific incident, immediately after Deebo Samuel was shaking, saying, "Kyle just needs to give me the damn ball," he got the damn ball, and he helped the 49ers turn that game around. They came back, and they beat the Detroit Lions. Of course, he pulled his hamstring in the Super Bowl 2 weeks later. Then he had that amazing offseason, great week 1, great week 2, oblique injury, pneumonia about a month later, and, it all just unraveled. It all went downhill from there. I think that the nadir for Deebo Samuel came against the Los Angeles Rams in December. This is a picture that you probably recognize. And at that point, it was, I think, fairly obvious that he wouldn't be back for 2025. The 49ers were able to recoup that 5th-round pick, which I think in and of itself is good for the 49ers because you're planning to move on from him anyway. There's a solid chance in scenario like that teams just decide to wait you out and then Because Deebo Samuel wants a new contract anyway, so then they go and they try to sign him after you cut him. 49ers have some connections around the league. Adam Peters is one of them in Washington. Adam Peters understands, he knows the stories of Deebo Samuel delivering the way that he did for the 49ers in massive games multiple times. And Adam Peters says, I want to pair him with Jaden Daniels. I find it ironic, but this is just how unpredictable the league is, that Brandon Ayuk and Jaden Daniels seem to be kind of scheming to play together last year, right? When they were hanging out in the offseason, their former teammates from Arizona State. But it's Deebo Samuel who gets traded to play with Jaden Daniels before then. So you can't predict this league. You really can't. But it does ultimately make sense. This is something that we saw coming now for a couple weeks, and especially yesterday when I told you guys that a trade was imminent. It indeed was imminent. Deebo Samuel is now with the Washington Commanders. So, I say here how they managed to save money. I know a lot of you are just joining right now. This is the cap situation. The cap hit grows this year, but it's off the books next year. Unused salary cap space carries over from season to season. So the 49ers save $17.5 million. Those are $17.5 million very valuable dollars for the 49ers, especially considering the mandate for ruthless efficiency. I mean, this is something that we noted heading into the offseason. It's something that I think we noted already last year with Eric Armstead. He came in at a number of 17 million into 2024, and the 49ers said, hey, maybe even 18 million. They said, hey, we want to cut your pay to 6 million. And Eric said no. So Eric went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The 49ers executed a similar maneuver with Kyle Juszczyk. He said okay because his number was more closely in range with his old one. His salary wasn't quite as high, so Juszczyk said okay. But there already was some trimming of inefficient money for the 49ers in 2024. We knew that trimming would continue because we know that Brock Purdy is going to sign his deal this offseason, and we know that everything that the 49ers have structured as a team is built around that. They have the confidence now that has been instilled by their peers, right? If the Buffalo Bills have been able to trim and contend, if the Los Angeles Rams have been able to trim and contend, then the 49ers believe they can do the same thing, especially since another team that has trimmed and contended is the Philadelphia Eagles, although they did that on the defensive side of the ball. This is an offensive maneuver for the 49ers, and I think it all goes back to Brock Purdy. It goes back to the pairing with the quarterback. The hard truth, we can put it up on the screen right here, is that the 49ers ranked dead last in average separation last year. I will continue repeating this until the 49ers fix it. Because you have people sitting online, sitting on their YouTube channel, sitting on Twitter, yelling about problems that don't actually exist with the 49ers while ignoring the issues that are really troubling this team. And for the offense this past season, it was separation. They had great splits for the second straight year against zone coverage. They struggled against man-to-man coverage, and they ranked dead last, number 32, in the average separation. They ranked number 11 the season prior to that. So, I mean, you see the pattern here, and you see the variable that changed. Again, Deebo Samuel, more of a bulldozer than a separator. He probably will fit really well with Washington, especially if he could heal up and not have to deal with what he dealt with the pneumonia and the oblique injury this past season. He's going to have Terry McLaurin as one of his wide receivers, Jaden Daniels, just like Brock Purdy, really good young quarterback. It's a great landing spot for Deebo Samuel. He's going to get his new contract as well. But I think that Washington feels with Cliff Kingsbury, good offensive coordinator who should be able to scheme some of the run pass stuff in there with Deebo Samuel. I think Washington feels that they can benefit greatly from this change of scenery. And the 49ers feel that they can take steps forward with their offense and their offensive efficiency, especially since Deebo Samuel already was a little bit of a misfit last season in that 49ers offense. And it was a misfit that they tried to force feed in a critical game against the Rams, which obviously was not good for San Francisco. I thought that Kyle Shanahan wasn't at his best play calling this past season. A lot of that probably affected Deebo Samuel's numbers as well. Everything in football is complicated, right? So the 49ers, when you're gauging why a certain player fell off and everybody tries to simplify it and say, oh, it's because Deebo might have gained some weight. Oh, it's because Deebo was hurt, or oh, it's Deebo's lazy. I don't like his attitude, or Kyle Shanahan sucks. It's usually a combination of a bunch of different factors. And the 49ers saw a perfect storm of negative factors this past season. Their job is to optimize the chances of a perfect storm not occurring again moving into the future. And that's why they're going to look to receivers who can beat man coverage. I think that's going to be a big time focus for San Francisco moving forward. Receivers who run those intermediate routes really well so that Brock Purdy's timing game is on point. They can use, some of the financial savings from this to fortify areas of the roster that have seen lacking performance, where free agency might be able to give a nice boost. But it is really important to understand the dead money and the long-term finances of this whole situation, so you could really grasp why the 49ers were so eager to oblige Deebo Samuel on his trade request. I finished this article, the last line here from John Lynch comes from a few days ago at the NFL Combine. I say that life changes fast in the NFL, and Samuel's exit from the 49ers was certainly emblematic of that. He's asked for a fresh start, and I think we're going to honor that, John Lynch said. There's a lot of love, respect, and shared experiences there. It's difficult to let go of that. But that time happens, and if it makes sense for both sides, you at least give it a chance. It did make sense for both sides, and the 49ers did give it a chance. Cliff Kingsbury is new offensive coordinator with the Washington Commanders, loves screens. Kyle Shanahan, for some reason, fell out of love with screens this year. He called the fewest in the league through 3 months of the season. That didn't help Deebo Samuel's play out either. But if Cliff is going to call the screens, and they've just traded for Deebo Samuel, they used that 5th-round pick, all power to him. I think that could really, really help boost Deebo's career entering his age 29 season. He's going to turn 30 in January. Where are we at, Mike? How many do we have on? It says over 3,500 here, including the Twitter stream, which is great. Everybody supporting the show, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, comment, do whatever you need to. I've done 2 lives today, stepped away from a party that I was at earlier to go live, stepped outside by the horses. That was kind of cool, right? The horses came over, checked it out, and we had a good time. We talked about Deebo for about 15 minutes, talked about the 49ers draft picks that they're picking up. That's big for San Francisco. They didn't have a 5th rounder. Remember the accounting error? The NFL stripped them of a 5th round pick due to the accounting error about, that was, I think, at the owners' meetings last year. Yeah, I remember asking John Lynch about the accounting error at the owners' meeting. So that's already been a good 11 months. We found out that they weren't going to have that 5th round pick. The 5th round has been a money-making round. George Kittle, DJ Reed, Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw. All those players have gone in the 5th round for San Francisco. So they get a 5th round pick now. And that is going to be coming from Adam Peters, their former executive, coming from Washington to San Francisco. The pick is coming from Washington to San Francisco. Adam Peters went from San Francisco to Washington. And guess who else is going from San Francisco to Washington? That is right, Deebo Samuel himself. So this is a reaction show to the big trade. 49, and again, a situation like this, you often don't expect to get anything. And I think a lot of people thought, oh, well, Deebo's going to get cut anyway if the 49ers don't trade him. They're not going to be able to get anything for him. I think for the 49ers reportedly wanted a 4. They didn't get the 4. They got the 5. They were content with settling on that. There was also some interesting talk from Jeremy Fowler about Jonathan Allen, the defensive tackle, 30-year-old defensive tackle for Washington, coming over to the 49ers because the Commanders are shopping him in a trade. But Jonathan Allen was set to make about $16.5 million this year. And if we go back to this, if we go back to the financial spreadsheet for the Deebo Samuel trade, if you had to absorb Jonathan Allen's contract as the 49ers, it would have nullified the $17.5 million that you saved via this transaction. So, because it's all but $1 million, right? You would have absorbed $16.5 million, and the 49ers gained $17.5 million. And Jonathan Allen is not a good enough player to be paid $16.5 million, which is why Washington is looking to move on from him. Instead of extending him, he is declined over the past few years. So this is all now a spot for San Francisco where they may monitor the availability of Jonathan Allen if and when Washington cuts him. They might try to sign him for less than 16.5 million, but they weren't about to absorb his contract for that price. Mike says that my audio has gotten bad. Well, I apologize about that. I wonder why. I think it's on here. Yeah. Is it terrible, Mike? Maybe my computer's just going slow. Maybe my computer's just freezing up. I know why. Is this better? Is my audio better? I think that another video popped up in the background. Let me know if this is better. And if it's better, I'll keep it this way. Okay, that works. Good. I usually like to have a recording. I just turn it on my phone. I like to have a video playing here so I can make sure that the feed is still going okay because I use a different piece of software. I got a text from my buddy who's like, "Oh man, Deebo Samuel only for a 5th round pick." He's a Bears fan though. He doesn't follow the Niners all that closely. Anybody following this situation knows that getting anything was going to be a win for the 49ers. And they were well prepared for this because they had insulated their salary cap situation over the years. They'd pushed the money back into the void years. So they had enough space to be able to absorb the Deebo Samuel cap hit in the short run. That's why it gets higher in 2025 after the trade, but they saved the 17.5 million over the longer run. So somebody said it's that storm coming in. Is there a storm coming in? I don't know. I don't think there's a storm coming in where I'm at, but maybe there's a storm coming in where you're at. I think the audio is better now, and we can continue reacting to this Deebo Samuel trade. Big day for the 49ers. Now the question is, did they also trade Brandon Ayuk? I think that's a lot less likely. I talked about it earlier, but BA is, that's a situation where some acrimony creeped in over the course of the contract negotiation last offseason. There's perhaps some regret from the 49ers side. If they could run it back and just go, what was it? 2nd round pick, 5th round pick, Amari Cooper. They're able to hit the rewind button and do that. They probably would for Brandon Ayuk at this point. But obviously Ayuk didn't want to sign with the Cleveland Browns, so they couldn't do it before he signed the contract last year. But the 49ers can dangle Brandon Ayuk's availability out there and see if somebody bites like they did last season. The problem is he's coming off of a torn ACL, so I don't think that there would be nearly as much interest. Now that his contract for an acquiring team would be 4 years, 110 million, 27.5 million per year. So it's a long shot. It's not completely outrageous, though. It's worth the 49ers checking on everything. If there is still acrimony there, if there still is some buyer's remorse there for the 49ers, well, you have to proceed forward in the most efficient way. You can't worry about sunk cost fallacy. The issue here is that the most efficient way forward probably will be to keep Brandon Ayuk, hope that he recovers from his ACL, and get at least one more good season from him. That appears to be the highest probability route. The highest probability route regarding Deebo Samuel had long been, I would say, even before entering this 2024 season, the highest probability route for Deebo Samuel had been that he would be out. And he is out. Deebo Samuel is now with the Washington Commanders. The reunion with Adam Peters, Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator of the Commanders, loves to run some screen passes. That should give Deebo Samuel an opportunity to make some more highlights. One of my favorite Deebo Samuel plays with the 49ers came in 2021. I mean, this guy was a momentum changer. I think that's what really needs to be emphasized about Deebo Samuel, is that when you needed a spark, he could generate it essentially all by himself. When you needed a spark, Deebo Samuel, like 3rd and 20 against the Bears, this is the play I'm talking about in October of that 2021 season, caught the little bubble screen and sprinted 80 yards. Ultimately ruled out of bounds just ahead of the end zone. But the 49ers season was on life support, and Deebo Samuel supercharged it with energy. Right before the first half, Jimmy Garoppolo threw a really nice deep ball that Deebo Samuel hauled in. That created points for the 49ers in that game. I mean, when they needed him throughout that rough 2021 start, Deebo Samuel was ready to give the 49ers the boost that they needed. One of the most exhilarating 49ers games that I'll ever cover. And if I cover them I've covered them for a while. Maybe I'll cover them for a long time moving forward. But one of the most exhilarating games that I've ever covered was the week 17 or week 18 game against the Rams in 2021, where Deebo Samuel was taking carry after carry after carry as the 49ers were coming back from a 17-point deficit. And they didn't pass a single time on this drive until the very final play from about the 30. And they hand off to Deebo Samuel, who's running right. And it was the perfect time. They had the Rams set up. They had the Rams dead to rights because they were expecting run. And everybody collapsed in on Deebo Samuel, and Juwan Jennings leaked out, was wide open in the end zone. And Deebo with maybe the ugliest form I had ever seen. Like, it was the ugliest wind up and throw I'd ever seen. It looked like he had never thrown a football before. It looked like he was chucking a loaf of bread up into the crowd at SoFi Stadium, the modern day Coliseum. He throws this rainbow that just hangs up in the air forever. And Juwan Jennings is wide open and he's sitting there. He's waiting for it. It's like, hey, when's this football going to come down? A wobbly spiral. And Juwan Jennings, it hits his hands and then it bobbles like 4 times as he's stumbling backwards because he just, didn't have the patience to wait for that football to get to him. He, got butterfingers by the time he got there, but Juwan secured the ball. He caught it. And the 49ers tied the game with everything on the line. Like, everything was on the line in that game against the Rams. And Juwan brought it down. And the 49ers later, Deebo made a huge catch when the Niners were down 7 later in the game with a minute to go. And Jimmy Garoppolo found him on 2nd and long. It was a big catch and run for Deebo to set up the tying touchdown for Juwan Jennings. And then, just a couple weeks after that, you had Deebo Samuel with the run on 3rd and 6 against the Packers in the snow. And this is a big time player. So many huge plays. And then the game against Philadelphia where he silenced the crowd there. It was a good 6-year run, guys. It was a really good 6-year run. I think it's time to sit back and really appreciate what Deebo Samuel was able to do. Created a new position, really, that wide back position. And then John Lynch, he said, sometimes it's time. And it was time. It was time for the divorce between the 49ers and Deebo Samuel. Not for long. That's what NFL stands for. Things can change really quickly, and they certainly did change. 49ers are going to be moving to this more cost-efficient model. They're going to be following some other successful teams in the NFL. They're no longer trying to cram spending in the short term. It doesn't mean they're done contending. It just means that they are looking for more ruthless efficiency. I put a ruthless reaction in the title of this video, and I think that's exactly what San Francisco is aiming to do here with Deebo Samuel. And, people are asking me, is Brandon Ayuk next? Probably not, but everything is possible. When you're dead set on ruthless efficiency, there are no guarantees. Just like this article up on the Standard says, no guarantees. And yes, that includes Brock Purdy. They're not going to let go of Brock Purdy, but it's, there's no guarantee that he gets something done contract-wise because they're going to be trying to fight hard to stick along the path of financial efficiency. That's the centerpiece contract, though. Quarterback's the most important position. So you have to believe there's going to be a higher priority to get that done than anything else. And you already see it with the Deebo Samuel move. You already see it with, the potential of a Brandon Ayuk move. With all these other cost-cutting measures that the 49ers are taking, the centerpiece of what they're doing is the quarterback position. They're building the roster around that on multiple different levels. Being Butterfly loved the 2023 Week 13 game against the Eagles. That was special from Deebo Samuel, and he deserves a lot of credit. This is a stupid comment. Purdy's ceiling is Kirk Cousins. Okay, then why has he already performed better than Kirk Cousins ever has in his career? Kirk Cousins was never number 1 in QBR. I don't even think Kirk Cousins was ever top 5 in QBR. So somebody will go and say Purdy's ceiling is Kirk Cousins when Purdy has already shown a distinctly higher ceiling than Kirk Cousins. Guys, 1 + 1 = 2. Don't make me teach you elementary math, okay? Like, sometimes you just have to use your brain. Sorry, comments that don't use their brains, I will call out if I see them. Okay, this gets worse because Kirk Cousins didn't have Kyle Shanahan. Kirk Cousins literally had Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. He had those guys coaching him back in Washington. I mean, you're literally just making stuff up at this point. This is unbelievable. He also had Justin Jefferson. Mike asks, what inefficiency do you feel would stand out most on offense in 2025 minus Deebo Samuel? Bubble screens, end arounds. Yeah, but the end arounds weren't efficient anyway this past year. He was at 3.2 yards per carry. They weren't running screens anyway. Then when they started running screens, not as many of them went to Deebo Samuel. They seemed to go to, they were more standard screens. They were like the George Kittle type of screens. So, I mean, so much of what the 49ers had run successfully with Deebo Samuel for whatever reason, and I think a lot of it was because Purdy was a quarterback with whom they work further downfield, but it just wasn't there for San Francisco. So I'm looking for separators downfield if I'm the 49ers. And the timing precision game is what San Francisco is all about now with their quarterback. And that's between 10 and 25 yards downfield. And those are really, if it wasn't off of play action, those were not Deebo Samuel's money routes. The separation, again, it ranked last in the NFL for the 49ers as a receiving unit when they're largely reliant upon him. So a lot of the biggest inefficiencies that you like, the efficiency that you lose with Deebo Samuel leaving is something that already wasn't efficient for the 49ers in 2024, which is why they were not in a rush to extend his contract. All right, everybody, your support would be very much appreciated. The John Lynch article is up. Well, that one is up, but so is the Deebo Samuel article. Sorry, I have the wrong article up. Go and check out the San Francisco Standard. 49ers sent Deebo Samuel to the Commanders for a 5th-round pick. Sign up for the Standard. All signups give you the most in-depth 49ers coverage there is. These are the savings, by the way, for Deebo Samuel. $1.17 million base salary, $15.4 million option bonus off the books, $850,000 in total bonuses off the books. That adds up to $17.5 million. And of course, I illustrated it this way. The 49ers, less short-term space because this takes up $31.5 million now, but they had plenty. It's not going to impact them at all in free agency. They still have $45 million or so after this. So they're going to be able to sign whoever they want to in free agency. And then they're completely off the books next season for Deebo Samuel. So anyway, people really are cap illiterate. I'm not going to hold back on saying that. There's a lot of bad information out there. If you want the actual accurate information, go ahead and check out the San Francisco Standard. It's going to be in the description on YouTube, or you can go check it out on X. That's our Deebo Samuel show. It was fun. The past 6 years were fun. 2nd-round pick from Mobile to Miami. San Francisco moves on. Remember when Aaron Donald didn't know who Deebo Samuel was? Well, he found out who Deebo Samuel was. He put together 6 quality years for the 49ers. The ending wasn't as high as the good years. It rarely is in the NFL, but the 49ers do recoup that 5th-round pick. This was all part of their offseason plan and strategy, and now they move forward. A lot of people will ask, well, what's next? We'll see what happens with Brandon Ayuk. He's probably sticking around, but you could never assume anything with this 49ers team in the offseason. What's definitely next is the 49ers are going to build this around Brock Purdy as robustly as they possibly can. All right, you guys know the drill. I went 49 minutes exactly. There's your reaction. Hard Saturday of work. We will see you later.